You're listening to the Next Play Podcast, a podcast for personal development, high achievers, and anyone not wanting to settle for average. We break down mindset, strategy, and unpopular truths behind next level growth. I'm your host, Justin Pates, joined by my co-host, Parker McGee. Let's get into it.
You get a little bit more juice. Turn up the dial a little bit, Justin. Back to let me start my watch, see? That was a reminder.
So like, as somebody that harps on it so much, like you even have it in the back of your office, like the process will get me rich. Like, why do you harp on that?
I think the value is like always in the details, right? Like the more detail oriented you can be in the process and keep the process the same way every single time, I think you can control the outcome a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Like sticking to basics that you know get you in the right place.
I think when you don't, there's people, right, that go out and they shoot from the hip, whether it be, at your job, whether it be from, even putting stuff away in your cabinets, right, in the kitchen. I'm a big guy. I'm like putting the forks with the forks, the knives with the knives, the spoons with the spoons, right? Because when we come back to that task, like there's an understood expectation and result that comes from that, where we grab all of them and we put them back in one time, right? Mm-hmm. Versus you coming back and not having a system and a process. Like you're at that point in time, it's just chaos, mm-hmm. right? So when you have the system and when you have the process put together, like the expected result, like there can be an expectation when it comes time to see the result.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing too is like when there is, chaos, like when things aren't always going your way, like you always, Dan Martell says it a lot, like you just fall back to your default. Like your default's always going to be the process, which is like how you expect things they should be. So then when things aren't going your way in other aspects of life, like you can always come back to the process knowing it'll take you where you want to go.
Is a habit and a process same thing?
I mean, your process is like a group of habits, right? Like it's like learned habits over time, like in a system, right? I don't think a process ever changes. So I feel like, yeah, it would be a really good habit when it comes to like a chain of habits.
When you talk about your process making you rich, I think it goes back to everything, right? Whether it be your faith, whether it be fitness, whether it be financial freedom, all of these different things. Because if you have a delegated system, mm-hmm. If you have a system your system is going to church every Sunday, you're going to move that needle on faith a little bit more, right? Mm-hmm. Fitness, right? If you go one time really hard in the gym and then wait till Friday and then go one more time, really hard in the gym, it's not as consistent, mm-hmm. right? And I do agree with you. Like those 3 habits, if you can create those, like that's one large group of systems that like will make you, I feel like, a more well-rounded, individual if those are your, aspirations.
I will say, like, and even to like piggyback off of the original question, I feel like, a process is a habit, but it's an understood habit. Like habits are, habitual, right? So you don't understand, like your brain is kind of on autopilot. But I feel like, having a process, like especially like, going to church or like, going to the gym every day, it's an understood non-negotiable. It's something that you just fall back on every single time. Like it's just understood, like you wake up, whatever, like, 9 o'clock, you're going to church. You wake up, in the morning, like you go to the gym, right? Like it's an understood non-negotiable. Now, like, obviously I always like the principle of kind of like inversing it, right? Having a process leads to success, but why is it that, not having that intent, ultimately leads to failure?
I don't know if it leads to failure. I think it's more just unsustainable, right? Like I've seen even, take take sales, for example, right? I've seen really good sales reps not have any sort of process and still get results. We always talk about that when a new guy comes in, he kills it. There's no process in place. He's getting results, right? But he doesn't know how he's getting those results because there's no process, versus the guy that takes his time, kind of goes through the ringer, gets a little bit better, starts seeing the uptick, eventually gets to a point where he's like, this step worked, this step worked, this step worked, this step worked, and this step worked to get me this result, right? They understand that process and they're able to implement that. And now they're able to sustainably, hold that, right? Whereas the guys that don't have a process and every time it's different, right? They're the ones just swinging for the fences where they might hit a home run, but they're probably not going to have a great batting average.
Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, I guess, like, could you say then, it kind of does lead to failure? Like, maybe not immediately. Like, you might not break that first time, but, after a chain of, kind of neglection of the details, like you said, like, do you feel like it kind of does ultimately kind of like lead to failure?
I think long term, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think long term, yes.
Was there a point where, because obviously your past in business, is pretty big. Like, was there a point, where you didn't have a process, and like, how long did it take you to build that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's one of those things where I've always been the guy that's been just very detail oriented.
Mm.
So I had the luxury of not, I obviously had to build a process, and we had to build a process within AE or Polypro, et cetera. But I was always the guy that was searching, right, for that same thing, so we could just take it and do it again, right? And do it again, and do it again. I'm very much like, you tell me one thing, and then I'll do it, and then like change comes along, and I'm like, God, I hate fucking change. But also some of the best things, in life will come with change too. I remember our first time on Builder Prime, the CRM we use,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like we got it in Indianapolis, and I was like, dude, I do not want to do that. And then by the time you just get all in and you do it, then you create that new process. But I feel like I've always been a guy of process. I feel like you have too, would you say?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, you kind of just, know the things to avoid. How is it then, do you instill a process into somebody? Because, like, like there's a lot of guys that come in, just kind of spontaneous with no process.
I think there definitely has to be a high level of commitment.
Yeah.
Right, to like create that habit. We even struggle with it sometimes.
Mm.
Right? Like creating that habit and like actually taking it to where you want to go. I think it takes a high level of commitment to tell yourself, like, when shit goes really south, I'm going to default to my process.
Because, ultimately, like, to have a commitment, you must have a vision, right? And you have a process to achieve that vision, right? Has there been a point, you kind of just said it, but, like, has there been a point where, like, being as systematic as you are, that you've, kind of strayed away from the process a few times?
We're going to have to go back on the commitment and vision one. You're going to have to say that one more time, because that was gold.
Was it? So basically, like, in order to, commit yourself to a process, there has to be a vision, right, at the end of the tunnel. Like, there's not, there's no such thing as something for nothing. Like, there's a system in place, right? Like, habits that you've chained together because you know that they ultimately get you to that desired, goal.
And who do you speak that to?
Everybody, dude. Seriously. Anybody that has a vision to get to a bigger place, like, there has to be systems in place to get to that place. Like, you can't just expect to get there, without bare bones, detail oriented, right? Like, it's the things that people neglect, which is why it's so hard to get to, the top.
A system might be something as small as showing up on time, which is pretty ironic because we showed up 30 minutes late to this episode. But I heard this the other day too, that they talked about, like, if you give somebody your word that you're going to be there, you know, you post a meet time for your crew or your sales rep or whatever, you know, and I definitely struggle with this because sometimes my life gets chaotic. But again, that's when we're talking about defaulting to your process. Like, if you can hold your word and always show up on time and never miss that, like, what does that do for your credibility?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, you're just known as the guy who's reliable, which is
Same thing with sales reps, same thing with installers, same thing with, you know, office admins, like anybody that's ever an employee or a boss, you know, et cetera, the more they can raise their process and like just fall back on that process, it almost increases their credibility too, because they just know they're always going to be there to do the same thing that they've always done.
How is it? Because I would imagine, you know, even like right now, like, you know, sales are, you know, not riding a high right now. I guess, you know, they always say that, you know, positive influence probably has an effect of 10%, but a negative influence has an effect of like 30. And, you know, again, you fall back to your default. So have you seen trends where, you know, the bar does lower a bit? And like, how did you get it, you know, back up to where it should be?
I think when we look at this, right, from a outsider looking in, like I do always want to remind, and this is a little bit of storytelling, which I know we said we're not going to do, but we also have to remind like everybody that, like, hey, last year we did $500,000. Right? This year we're pacing 1.3. Yeah, we're not going to hit our goal of 1.5, but like 250% growth, like, it's not terrible. Most businesses don't do that. I think they grow on average like 14, 15%.
Yeah.
According to Google or ChatGPT. Tim, you're going to have to ChatGPT it. Pretty impressive, right? So like, I think just understanding too, you know, and having the just the mental capabilities to be like, hey, this isn't that bad. This isn't, you know, I ran that one lead or whatever it may be. Like, this isn't that bad to the point where I need to stray away from my process, right? Like, yes, we're going through a little bit of chaos, but like, let's just default back to the process. And more times than not, it's going to come out the exact same way you wanted it to, right? And I think when the chaos, you know, meter gets to a point where it's too high, I think that's when people were like, no, you know, this isn't a normal situation, so I'm not going to do my standard operating procedure. Where it's like, this thing will always get you the results. You know, I've said it 3-4 times now. Will always get the results that you knew they were going to get you.
Because you have to expect chaos.
Yes.
And you can't, you know, avoid it, but you can better prepare when it does happen. Do you feel like, you know, are you proud of kind of the process you've built in AE? Because I mean, it's working.
Yeah, I think so, but I also think like we have another piece to get. I think there's, you know, we run pretty lean just because we've grown so fast, but I would like to get to the point where, you know, really we're at a point where we should have a full-time sales manager, right? That's not in the car every day. Right? We should have probably a production manager that's not on a crew every day. So I think, you know, yes, I mean, we have to be proud of it because like everybody has seen a ton of success, but we also have another piece to get. Do you agree?
Yeah. Is it that change like that you're not really like comfortable with?
I think it's more about timing.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to, I don't think a habit is created with this massive change. I think typically it's a lot more micro than most people think. You know, most people think it's, hey, if I'm going to get fit, I'm going to go get the most expensive gym membership and the most expensive, you know, coach or whatever this may be. Where it's like, in all reality, like you could probably wake up every morning and do 100 crunches, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups. And like, by the time you get that morning routine down, like then it's going to trickle into your diet. Then it's going to trickle into...
It's a lot of like the unsexy stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's the small things. Like the simplicity is what scales. right? Like people always want to jump to the biggest thing, which, I think is a big no-no when it comes to having a process too, right? Like you never want to skip steps. Like it's always important to like build that framework, like little step, little step, little step, little step, which over time adds up. But you can look back knowing that those, habits, those processes are in cement, right? Like they're in stone. Like you've set that. So then as you build the building a little bit higher, like you still have that solid base to fall back on, which is, ultimately, again, like the importance of a system.
Somebody, your younger self, sitting across from you, you're harping on systems to him. What are you saying?
I think the biggest thing is it goes back to having that vision, right? Like sometimes it might take longer than what you would want to, get to that point. But if you do have those systems in place to where, you're doing the right things and avoiding the wrong things, again, it's super unsexy, but ultimately it's moving the needle to that vision that you have, which is super important.
Do you think it's more important of avoiding the wrong things or doing the right things?
If you don't know what to do, I think avoiding the wrong things is the best thing. Like you start with that, right? Because sometimes the answer of what to do isn't always there, but you know damn well that you shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z, which I think is super important.
There we go. I think that's a wrap.
Like that. That was good.
JB. We were probably at 15 minutes by the time we cut out.
Really?
Yep.